This is a continuation on auxiliary verbs, where we talk about the auxiliary verbs which exist in the German language. Reveal the purpose of auxiliary verbs in the language and how they are used in various grammatical structures. This is part 2 of a 2-part series video. In part 1 of the video, we talked about the 3 auxiliary verbs found in the German language, the purpose of auxiliary verbs in forming the perfect tense and the plusquamperfect tense. In this continuation, we will discuss the role of auxiliary verbs in the Futur II tense, the Futur I tense, and in forming the passive voice. Continuing on to Futur II. It is a tense which describes an action that will have been completed by a certain point in the future. I will clarify this with an example. Imagine your high school best friend is reading a novel which he finds interesting. After finishing the novel, he gives it to you and suggests that you read it also. After some time, your friend eagerly asks you whether you found the novel interesting and you reply, "I have not read the novel." The next day he asks again whether you have read the novel and again you reply, "I have not yet read the novel." On the third day, you meet him again and to silence him before he even asks, you immediately say, "By tomorrow, I will have read the book." This is an example sentence that is in the future perfect tense, or Futur II. It is showing or predicting that by a future date or time, something will have been completed, that is reading the book. Futur II is formed with werden and the past participle of the main verb, followed by haben or sein. In the infinitive, Futur II is the only tense in German which uses 2 auxiliary verbs, that is, werden and either haben or sein. The auxiliary verb, werden, helps to place the entire completed action into the future. The auxiliary verb, haben or sein, helps to form the perfect participle phrase. The use of either haben or sein depends on whether the main verb involves a change in location or not, just like in the perfect tense. We now look at a practical example sentence where the auxiliary verbs werden and haben are used to form the future perfect tense. Bear in mind that in German it is called Futur II, and in English it is called future perfect. So I am using the terms interchangeably. The sentence, "Bis morgen werde ich das Buch gelesen haben," translate to "by tomorrow, I will have read the book." This sentence is describing an action that will have been completed by a certain point in the future. That is the future perfect tense, formed by a conjugated auxiliary verb, werde, used together with the past participle of the main verb, gelesen, and another auxiliary verb in the infinitive, haben. The combination of the past participle, gelesen, and the auxiliary verb, haben, show that the action is already completed, just like a past tense sentence, and the auxiliary verb, werde, transfers the entire completed action into the future, thus creating the future perfect tense. Here the auxiliary verb, haben, is used instead of sein, because the main verb, lesen, does not express a change in location or state. The second example uses the auxiliary verbs, werden and sein, to form the future perfect tense. The sentence, "Das Auto wird angekommen sein," translate to "the car will have arrived." As in the previous example, the sentence is describing an action that will have been completed by a certain point in the future. That is the future perfect tense, formed by a conjugated auxiliary verb, wird, used together with the past participle of the main verb, angekommen, and another auxiliary verb in the infinitive, sein. The difference between the 2 examples is that, in this example the auxiliary verb, sein, is used instead of haben, because the main verb, ankommen, expresses a change in location. The purpose of the German tense, Futur I, is to express actions or events that will happen in the future. A husband can say to his wife, "I will go on a business trip." This means he didn't go yesterday, is not going now, but he will go sometime in the future, probably in the next hour, or tomorrow, or even next year. The point is, it indicates something that will happen at a later time. Futur I is formed with the auxiliary verb werden and the main verb in the infinitive. Werden acts as a helper verb to indicate the future. It's essentially the German equivalent of the English will or shall when forming the future tense. The auxiliary verb werden is conjugated to match the subject of the sentence, and its presence immediately signals to the listener or reader that the action described by the main verb, which remains in its infinitive form at the end of the sentence, is a future event. We look at an example where the auxiliary verb werden is used to form the future eins tense. The sentence, Ich werde morgen arbeiten, translate to I will work tomorrow. The purpose of the auxiliary verb werde is to assist the main verb, arbeiten, to express that the action happens in the future. Another example is, Sie wird Deutsch lernen, which translate to she will learn German. Consider the two sentences. The house is being built, and the builder is building the house. They carry a similar conceptual meaning, but one of them is in the active voice and the other one is in the passive voice. This brings us to the second purpose of auxiliary verbs, which is to form the passive voice. The passive voice is used when the action is being done on the subject. A sentence constructed in the passive voice puts emphasis on the action itself or the receiver of the action. In the German language, the auxiliary verb werden is used in forming the passive voice, combined together with the past participle of the main verb. The primary purpose of the auxiliary verb werden is to indicate that the subject of the sentence is the one undergoing the action, rather than performing it. Werden is conjugated to match the subject. The main verb, as usual, carries the main meaning of the action. We look at an example where the auxiliary verb werden is used to form the passive voice. The sentence, Das Buch wird gelesen, translate to the book is being read. The purpose of the auxiliary verb werd is to express the passive voice. This means that the action gelesen is being done on the book. Hence the subject, which is das Buch, is not the one performing the action, but rather the action is being done on the book, that is, the book is being read. In normal sentences which are in the active voice, the subject will be the one doing the action. Another example is, Das Auto wird repariert, which translate to the car is being repaired. To summarize everything. 1. Auxiliary verbs, also called helping verbs, are crucial for creating different tenses and voices. 2. The three auxiliary verbs in the German language are haben, sein, and werden. 3. Auxiliary verbs help form the past tense, future tense, and passive voice. Check out part 1 of the video on auxiliary verbs in the link. And if you're getting value from the videos, consider subscribing and liking the video. Thank you.